The unexpected signal. It was a peaceful time on Earth. For centuries, humanity had lived without war, basking in the comfort of technological advancements. Cities hummed with life, and the stars above seemed distant, calm, and unreachable. No one expected anything to break this peaceful routine, especially not a message from deep space. It started as a quiet hum, a strange vibration in the atmosphere that scientists couldn't explain. At first, they thought it was a malfunction in the radio towers or a glitch in the communication networks. But as the strange signals persisted, the world's top minds began to pay attention. They quickly traced it back to space, a signal coming from beyond the known territories of Earth's explorations. For a while, no one knew what to make of it. The message was unlike anything humanity had ever heard. It wasn't just a random series of beeps or static. It was organized, purposeful, and it wasn't in any language known to Earth. The message was a mystery wrapped in an enigma, and no one had the answers. The silence of space was about to be shattered. Experts across the globe scrambled to decode the strange transmission. Messages poured in from every corner of the planet. Scientists, engineers, and even military leaders. The signal was urgent. It was a cry for help. But who was sending it? And why? These were questions no one had the answers to, and yet the message continued. Days passed as teams worked tirelessly. The message didn't sound like an ordinary distress signal. The tone was clear, but the language was alien. It was a single sentence that stood out. One chance. Humanity's last cry. Come quickly. The words were chilling. There was no context, no explanation, only the urgent plea. The message repeated over and over, with slight variations, as if it was trying to communicate the same desperate plea. The world's leaders were thrust into a whirlwind of confusion and fear. Some believed it was a hoax, a well-crafted message designed to spark panic. But others, especially those who had dealt with deep space communications, feared something much more dire. Scientists tried to reverse engineer the signal, hoping to understand where it came from, and more importantly, who it came from. Some suggested it was a cry from a distant civilization, but the timing of the message was odd. The entire planet had been in peace for thousands of years. There had been no reports of extraterrestrial encounters. The signal, it seemed, was a surprise. The more the world tried to understand it, the less sense it made. The cryptic words only grew more unsettling with each passing hour. One chance. What did that mean? And why was humanity's name included in the message? No answers could be found. As days went on, the fear began to spread. What did this message mean for Earth? Could the message be a warning? Or was it an invitation? For the first time in centuries, people began to look at the stars with a sense of fear, wondering if the quiet, endless space that had always been so far away could now bring something much closer, something dangerous. The world's leaders held emergency meetings, trying to decide how to respond. The United Nations convened in secrecy, and the military began to prepare for any possible scenario. Was this the beginning of an invasion? Some believed the aliens were coming to conquer Earth. Others thought it might be a peaceful overture. But no one really knew what to expect. Despite the fear, there was a sense of unity that began to spread among the people. The world, for the first time in a long time, was united in purpose. Countries that had previously been at odds began to share information, resources, and technology. Everyone on Earth had one common goal: to figure out the origin of the signal and to prepare for what came next. Then, something strange happened. The message began to shift. It wasn't just repeating itself anymore. There were slight changes in the tone, the frequency, and the rhythm. It was as if the sender was adjusting their communication, waiting for a response. But no one could give one. No one knew how to respond to such an alien message. What could humanity say to someone, or something, that spoke a language no one could understand? How could they reply to a plea that wasn't meant for them? As scientists worked around the clock, one theory began to emerge. The message wasn't meant to be understood immediately. It was meant to test the response of Earth. Whoever was sending it wanted to see if humanity would take the threat seriously. Would Earth stand idle, as it had for so many years, or would it rise to the occasion? In every corner of the world, the people were on edge. The calm of everyday life had vanished. Governments began to make moves to protect their nations, building alliances and preparing defenses. People who had once taken their safety for granted were now wondering if it was all about to end. The world held its breath, unsure of what was to come. The message had done its job. It had stirred the planet's people. It had sparked a sense of urgency that had been missing for years. But one thing was clear. Humanity was no longer just waiting for answers. Now they were preparing for what might be a fight for survival. The quiet of space had been shattered. And in its place, a question lingered. Was Earth ready for what was coming? As the message continued to echo in the ears of the world's leaders, they knew one thing for certain. The peaceful days were over. The countdown to whatever came next had begun. As the days passed after the strange signal, the uncertainty in the air grew heavier. The world had been shaken from its peaceful slumber. What had once seemed like a distant possibility, the existence of extraterrestrial life, now felt frighteningly close. The message from the unknown had sent ripples through every corner of Earth, igniting questions that no one could answer. While scientists continued to analyze the signal, they were no closer to understanding its origin. The tone, the strange structure, and the cryptic message, all of it was unlike anything humanity had encountered before. Despite their best efforts, no one could find any clues about where it came from. The signal appeared to come from deep in space, beyond the farthest reaches of any human exploration. For the first time in human history, the idea of space was no longer just a distant frontier. The possibility that something from the vast, empty void between the stars was trying to communicate with humanity became a terrifying reality. But there was something even more unnerving, something that everyone had begun to notice. The message was not merely a warning. It was a challenge. One chance. It repeated. What did that mean? Governments around the world took immediate action. Military forces were put on high alert, and intelligence agencies were flooded with reports from space stations and satellite feeds. Countries that once saw each other as rivals now found themselves working together, sharing resources, intelligence, and strategies. The cooperation between nations was unprecedented, as everyone understood that this wasn't a threat to just one country. It was a threat to humanity itself. But as Earth's leaders prepared for the worst, there was still no clear indication of what the message meant. Some feared that the aliens were coming to conquer. Others speculated that it was a test, a way for an advanced civilization to see how Earth would respond to an outside force. There were even those who believed that the aliens were trying to offer humanity a choice, perhaps a chance for alliance, but only if humanity proved worthy. In every corner of Earth, the sense of dread continued to grow. People spoke in hushed tones about what might come next. The quiet, peaceful life they had always known now seemed fragile. Cities once full of bustling crowds were now quieter, more subdued. People glanced nervously at the skies, unsure of what might appear above them. The governments, too, were growing restless. The world's leaders held urgent meetings in secret bunkers, away from prying eyes. They debated their options, but the truth was, they were all just guessing. There was no way to know what was out there, who had sent the message, or what their intentions were. In the absence of answers, they turned to the one thing they all knew how to do: prepare for the worst. Emergency protocols were activated, and military personnel were placed on standby. Plans for defense and counterattack were drawn up. But despite all of this, there was an underlying sense of confusion. How could Earth defend itself against a force it didn't even understand? How could humanity stand against something far beyond its technological capabilities? The response to the message was becoming a race against time. Every day brought new developments, but none of them offered any clarity. The signal continued to repeat, its words still ringing in the ears of the world. One chance, humanity's last cry. Come quickly. It felt as if the universe itself was holding its breath. In the midst of all this, humanity's greatest strength began to emerge, its ability to unite in the face of the unknown. As fear gripped the hearts of the people, there was also a quiet resolve. Despite the uncertainty, humanity refused to be paralyzed. Earth's leaders began to gather the brightest minds, scientists, engineers, and strategists. Together, they would try to understand the message and prepare for whatever lay ahead. But even as Earth's best minds worked tirelessly, there were still so many questions. Was this a war, or was it something else entirely? Why had the message come now, after thousands of years of peace? And what was the true meaning of the words, "one chance"? For the first time in recorded history, humanity stood on the edge of a precipice, staring into the unknown. And as they did, one truth became clear. Whatever happened next, there would be no going back. The peaceful days of Earth were over. The galaxy, once a distant, quiet place, was now just a heartbeat away, and humanity was no longer an innocent bystander. As more signals came in, the leaders of Earth made a bold decision. It was time to make contact. If this was a test, humanity would rise to meet it. If this was an invasion, they would fight back. But whatever the future held, humanity was no longer waiting. They had heard the call, and now they would respond. And so, with the weight of the world on their shoulders, Earth's leaders authorized the first official attempt at communication. A transmission was sent into the depths of space, a message of their own, hoping to reach whoever had sent the signal. "We are humanity," the message began. "We hear your call. We will answer." It was a bold declaration, but it was the only one Earth could make. As the transmission echoed out into the stars, a question hung in the air. Would humanity's response be enough? Would this one chance be their salvation, or would it lead to the greatest test humanity had ever faced? The galaxy was listening, and Earth had just made its move. The days after Earth's message were filled with tense silence. The entire planet seemed to hold its breath, waiting for a response. The signal had been sent, and now all humanity could do was wait. Scientists, military officials, and leaders from around the world waited, eyes fixed on their screens, listening for any sign of movement from the stars. The world was on edge, and the usual hum of everyday life had been replaced with a feeling of anticipation, a collective anxiety that gripped everyone. Then, on the 6th day after Earth's transmission, something changed. A new signal was detected. It was faint at first, barely more than a whisper on the radar, but it was unmistakable. The same strange, cryptic pattern of frequencies filled the airwaves once more, but this time it was different. This time, the message was not just an echo, it was a reply. The news hit like a tidal wave. Every news station, every radio broadcast, and every news website was flooded with the same announcement. The aliens had responded. The message came in the same mysterious format, a combination of frequencies and patterns that no one had seen before. For hours, scientists worked tirelessly to decode the message. The world watched in stunned silence as they struggled to understand the alien language. Then, after what felt like an eternity, the breakthrough came. A team of linguists and cryptographers finally made sense of the pattern. The message was short, but its meaning was clear. "We are coming. We offer a choice. Prove yourselves, or perish." The response sent shockwaves through every corner of Earth. The implications were staggering. Earth had been given a choice that could determine the fate of the entire human race. The message was chilling in its simplicity. There was no offer of peace, no alliance, no diplomatic negotiations. It was clear that the aliens were not interested in coexistence. They had made their intentions known, and now, humanity was left to decide how to respond. The message, though simple, was loaded with questions. What did it mean to prove yourselves? What did the aliens expect from Earth? And most troubling of all, what would happen if humanity failed to meet their challenge? The threat of annihilation loomed large over every conversation. As the news spread across the globe, panic began to set in. People gathered in groups, speculating on what the message meant. Some believed that the aliens were testing humanity's worthiness. Others feared that the challenge was a prelude to an invasion, a test to see if Earth's defenses could stand up to their power. The uncertainty was maddening, and people were left grasping for any explanation they could find. Meanwhile, world leaders scrambled to figure out how to respond. The military went on high alert, preparing for the worst-case scenario. Space stations and satellites were positioned to monitor any movement from beyond Earth's atmosphere. Every nation began to mobilize, bringing together their most brilliant minds in an effort to prepare for the unknown. The United Nations called for an emergency summit, where leaders from all over the world met to discuss humanity's next steps. The room was filled with tension as each nation voiced its concerns and proposed possible responses. Some urged for immediate military retaliation, seeing the aliens as a threat that needed to be neutralized. Others called for restraint, advocating for diplomacy and the hope that there was still a chance for peace. But in the end, it was clear that no one had the answers. While Earth's leaders debated, something else was happening across the globe. Ordinary citizens, once content with their daily lives, were now faced with an existential question. What did it mean to be human in the face of such an overwhelming force? Would humanity be able to stand its ground, or would it buckle under the pressure of a superior race? The uncertainty sparked a wave of fear and hope in equal measure. As the days passed, the world began to organize itself in a way that had never been seen before. Technology companies, defense contractors, and scientific institutions collaborated like never before, pooling their resources in an attempt to develop a strategy. The global economy, once thriving and stable, was now in a state of flux. Governments, focused on the alien threat, found themselves making difficult choices, redirecting resources away from civilian needs and into defense projects. But even as Earth prepared for the worst, there was something else at play. The message from the aliens was not just a warning. It was a challenge. And humanity, for all its flaws and mistakes, had always risen to meet a challenge. The collective human spirit, driven by an insatiable need to survive and to prove itself, began to awaken. People who had once felt small and insignificant in the grand scheme of the universe now stood united in their determination. No matter what the aliens had in store, they would face it together. Humanity's response was not one of fear alone. In every corner of the globe, people found themselves inspired by the challenge laid before them. Scientists worked day and night to create new technologies, military forces trained harder than ever before, and civilians, once passive observers of history, now felt like they were part of something much bigger than themselves. The galaxy had just shaken Earth to its core, but instead of cowering, humanity was rising. In the coming days, Earth's leaders made a bold decision. They would send another message, a message that would show the aliens that humanity was not afraid to fight for its survival. The human race had been given a choice, and it would not back down. The response would be clear. Humanity would not submit. Humanity would stand tall. We are humanity. The message would say, we will rise to the challenge. We will prove ourselves, and we will fight. The stage was set. The world was united, and the cry for survival echoed across the stars. The aliens had made their move, and now humanity would respond. The fate of the galaxy rested on the actions of a single species. Would humanity's defiant roar be enough to shake the galaxy? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain. The challenge had been issued, and Earth would answer. The days that followed were tense. As Earth scrambled to prepare for the unknown, the weight of the situation pressed down on every person, every nation, and every corner of the globe. Humanity was in the midst of a battle it had never anticipated. A war against an alien force that was seemingly more advanced, more powerful, and more ruthless than anything the human race had ever encountered. But in the face of this overwhelming threat, There was one thing that set humanity apart: its unwavering resolve to fight for its survival. World leaders, military strategists, and the brightest minds in science and technology worked tirelessly, day and night, to formulate a response. They analyzed the alien message over and over, searching for any clue, any hint that could give them an edge. The United Nations had already declared a state of emergency, and every nation on Earth had begun to mobilize. For the first time in history, the planet seemed to unite under one cause: survival. In the United States, military forces were placed on high alert, and the Defense Department worked closely with aerospace engineers to develop new weapons capable of countering the alien threat. Across Europe, countries pooled their resources to create a unified defense system, while in Asia, some of the world's top scientific minds were racing to unlock the secrets of advanced technology. The fear was palpable, but so was the determination. Then, on the seventh day, the first signs of movement from the alien fleet appeared. Satellites had detected something: a massive fleet of ships, unlike anything humanity had ever seen, moving toward Earth at an alarming speed. It was a staggering sight. The ships were enormous, sleek, and seemingly invincible. Their technology appeared to be far beyond Earth's current capabilities, and their weapons were more powerful than anything humanity had ever dreamed of. The first wave of alien ships arrived just outside Earth's orbit, their presence a stark reminder of the message humanity had received. They had come. The time for negotiation was over, and the alien forces were here to collect on their challenge. But humanity was not going to surrender without a fight. For the first time in history, Earth's combined military forces stood ready. The weapons were in place, the ships were prepared, and the people were waiting. A coordinated strike force of Earth's best soldiers, along with newly developed technology, was assembled, ready to take on the extraterrestrial invaders. The military knew that they were vastly outmatched, but they also knew that the alien forces had underestimated the human spirit, the ability to rise in the face of impossible odds. Humanity was ready to show the galaxy that it would not be easily conquered. The first shot was fired from Earth's orbital defense systems. A warning shot. It was meant to send a message, to show the aliens that humanity was not going to back down. But to the shock of the humans, the alien ships didn't flinch. They responded almost instantly with their own barrage of fire, sending shockwaves through Earth's atmosphere. It was the beginning of the war, and it was happening faster than anyone had anticipated. The world watched in horror as the battle unfolded. The alien ships launched devastating attacks, their weapons cutting through Earth's defenses like a hot knife through butter. Cities on Earth's surface were shaken to their core, and many were reduced to rubble in a matter of minutes. It was clear that Earth was not prepared for the sheer power of the alien weaponry. The initial strikes were devastating, but humanity did not surrender. No matter how overwhelming the odds seemed, people all over the world found the courage to fight. The military responded with counterattacks, deploying every available fighter jet, every spacecraft, and every weapon they had. It was chaos, but it was also a moment of unity. For the first time in history, humanity was standing together, fighting for its very existence. In the chaos, one thing became clear: humanity was not just a passive species waiting to be destroyed. It was a species that fought back, no matter the odds. The humans had underestimated their own strength, their own ability to adapt and innovate in the face of adversity. And now, they were fighting for everything they held dear. But even as the battle raged on, the aliens remained confident. They had technology that was far more advanced than anything Earth had. Their weapons were stronger, their shields impenetrable. And yet, as the battle continued, they began to realize something they hadn't expected. Humans were not like any species they had encountered before. Despite the aliens' overwhelming firepower, the humans kept coming. No matter how many ships were destroyed, how many cities were leveled, humanity refused to bow down. The humans were relentless. Their ingenuity, their creativity, and their sheer will to survive were becoming the aliens' biggest problem. They had thought Earth would collapse under the pressure, but instead, it was showing them a side they had never anticipated. Humanity was fighting back, and with every passing minute, the alien forces began to doubt whether they had truly underestimated Earth. In the war room of Earth's United Military Command, there was a growing sense of hope. The alien forces were powerful, yes, but the human forces were resourceful and determined. Even as the battle raged on, scientists and military strategists were coming up with new ways to fight back, new weapons and tactics designed to level the playing field. And then something extraordinary happened. The humans, facing impossible odds, managed to land a direct hit on one of the alien motherships. The impact sent shockwaves through the alien fleet, and for the first time, the invaders hesitated. The aliens had never expected humanity to strike back so fiercely, so boldly. The battle was far from over, but one thing was certain. Earth had proven that it was not going to give up without a fight. The aliens may have underestimated humanity, but that mistake was about to cost them dearly. The war had just begun, and Earth was determined to make its mark on the galaxy. The war had escalated to an intensity no one had predicted. Earth's defenses had been shaken by the alien onslaught, but the relentless courage of humanity had proven to be an unyielding force. The first few weeks of the war had been a blur of devastating alien strikes and desperate human counterattacks. But despite the massive destruction, something was changing. The aliens, with all their advanced technology, were beginning to see the true nature of humanity, a species that refused to be defeated, no matter the cost. After the unexpected strike on one of their motherships, the alien forces had been thrown into disarray. For the first time, they saw the possibility that Earth might actually put up a fight. The invaders had underestimated the human spirit, and now they were starting to realize their mistake. But it wasn't just the alien forces that were reeling from this development. The humans, too, were experiencing a shift. Hope was starting to replace despair. As the first signs of the alien fleet's hesitation began to appear, Earth's leaders realized the opportunity that was unfolding before them. For the first time, the humans were not just defending themselves. They were pushing back. The allies who had been in the shadows, unsure of what to do, now rallied behind Earth. The call for unity had been answered. Countries that had once been rivals now stood together, sharing intelligence, technology, and resources in a way they never had before. This was no longer just a battle for survival. It was a fight for the future of humanity. On Earth's surface, the war took its toll. Entire cities lay in ruins, and millions of lives had been lost. The human cost of the war was staggering, but the resolve of the survivors had never been stronger. People from all walks of life, soldiers, scientists, doctors, civilians, came together to find ways to fight back. The human spirit had been tested, and it was not found wanting. It was not just about the weapons now. It was about the ingenuity, the heart, and the will of humankind. The alien forces had underestimated Earth's greatest strength, its people. In the command centers around the world, strategies were being drawn up with unprecedented urgency. Military commanders were working hand in hand with scientists to develop new technologies. From the depths of laboratories to the high command centers, humans were on a mission to turn the tide of the war. And in the midst of this intense collaboration, something extraordinary happened, a breakthrough. The scientists had figured out a way to hack into the aliens' communication network. This breakthrough would change everything. With this new advantage, Earth's military forces began launching a series of coordinated strikes on the alien motherships, targeting their communication systems. The alien forces, caught off guard, began to lose their grip on the battlefield. The coordinated attack hit them where they were most vulnerable: their ability to communicate with each other and strategize. The aliens had never anticipated that Earth's ingenuity could infiltrate their highly advanced technology. As the battle raged on, Earth's forces began to land more successful blows. With every strike, the alien invaders began to lose their confidence. They had arrived with overwhelming force, expecting to crush humanity in mere days. Instead, they found themselves in the fight of their lives. The human forces were relentless, and the aliens could not adapt fast enough to the unpredictability of Earth's tactics. Each failure they suffered made them more desperate, and in their desperation, they made mistakes. The first major breakthrough came when Earth's engineers managed to deploy a new weapon, a modified EMP, electromagnetic pulse, bomb designed to target the alien technology specifically. The aliens had relied on their technology to overwhelm humanity, but now it was their own reliance on technology that became their downfall. The EMP bomb took down several of the alien ships, disabling their shields and leaving them vulnerable to further attacks. The tides of war were turning, and the human forces, though battered and bruised, were showing the aliens that they were far from defeated. With each victory, humanity's morale soared. Soldiers, scientists, and civilians alike began to believe that they could win this war. They had found a way to strike back, and the galaxy was watching. On the battlefield, the alien forces began to falter. The sight of their ships falling from the sky was something no one on Earth had dared to imagine just days before. But now, it was becoming a reality. As the alien forces scrambled to regroup, human ingenuity was proving to be the key to victory. The final blow came when Earth's forces, armed with newly developed weapons and strategies, launched a massive counteroffensive. The alien motherships, once thought invincible, were slowly being destroyed. Their fleet was in disarray, and the aliens, realizing that their hold on Earth was slipping, began to retreat. But it was too late. Humanity had found its strength, and the alien invaders were being forced to pay the price for underestimating the human will to survive. In the final days of the conflict, as the remnants of the alien fleet fled back into the depths of space, Earth's people stood victorious. The war was not over, but the turning point had been reached. Humanity had proven that, even in the face of overwhelming odds, it could rise, adapt, and fight back. The galaxy would never forget the lesson it had learned. Never underestimate Earth, for humanity would always find a way to survive. As the dust settled, and the true scale of the victory sank in, Earth's leaders began to shift their focus. The war was not just about winning. It was about ensuring that such a mistake would never be repeated. The galaxy had learned the hard way that humanity was not to be taken lightly. And now, with the victory in hand, Earth began to rebuild, stronger and more united than ever before, ready for whatever challenges the future might hold.